Hello, and welcome to Women We Watch in Tourism podcast series. WWW is a platform where we provide a space for women to leverage collective wisdom, experiences, and inspiration from women powerhouses in our industry to become innovative game changers. We will be engaging in insightful conversations with women who have changed the face of businesses in our industry and trailblazers who have steered innovative and creative ideas. This is a must-listen podcast for women leaders, professionals, and entrepreneurs to become visible, break glass ceilings, and to grow their impact. We believe that sharing these insights will be a catalyst for women in our industry to unleash their potentials and to seize the crisis as a turning point. So join our conversations by subscribing to Women We Watch in Tourism podcast. The challenges facing family-owned businesses are often more diverse and complex than those faced by other companies. Family and business are often intertwined into a mix of traditional family values, business challenges, and generational differences. Further, women face more challenges as the business role for family-owned entities is still a man's world. Even as co-founders and co-owners of the family business, women were often found on the sidelines facing similar challenges related to gender discrimination and stereotyping to those found in the broader corporate world. In some cases, women have traditionally played a somewhat invisible role in their family businesses as the hidden CEO, working behind the scenes and experience unconscious bias. However, women have the incredible ability to step up and shift their own as well as others' mental framework when they enter the business. In this week's episode, we get up close and personal with a leading woman who has successfully led a family-owned hospitality business and revered as one of the 50 most powerful women of business in Sri Lanka, Shiromal Cooray. Shiromal is the chairman and managing director of Jetwing Travels Private Limited, one of the leading outbound travel management companies in Sri Lanka. She is also the chairman of Jetwing Hotels Private Limited, a premier hospitality brand that owns and manages 30 hotels and 10 villas in Sri Lanka. With diverse experience in a number of industries, Shiromal also holds 19 other directorates in hotels, finance, investment banking, commodity brokering, advertising, and PR agencies. Strongly grounded on family values and the tenets of faith, humility, respect, passion, honesty, and tenacity, Shiromal and her brother Hiran with the entire Jetwing team have strived to build a strong hospitality brand that is distinctly Sri Lankan to the core and renowned internationally for the brand's warmth, service excellence, and sustainability initiatives. It's time to roll out the red carpet for our very special guest, the charming and down-to-earth Shiromal Cooray. So Shiromal, thank you for coming to our show. We are in season 2 and we have been waiting to receive you on this show, and it's a sheer delight to have you here. How are you today?
I'm fine, Nisha. Thank you very much for asking. I'm glad to be with you, and it's early in the new year, so it's nice. I'm doing good, Nisha. Thanks, and hope same with you.
Same for you, for me. I wish you a lovely 2022. And speaking with you, when I saw you earlier, it's like I missed Sri Lanka because it's one of my favorite destinations in the world. And I have stayed in many of your Jetwing hotels, and I've got my favorite. So tell me, what is your pet and which is your favorite hotel among the Jetwing properties?
Yeah, so I always like Yala, the wildlife.
Ah, yes.
Oh yeah, the Yala, and of course now
That's
we
a
have.
beautiful property, isn't it?
Yes, yes. So I like that. I also like Kaduruketa in Velavaya.
Uh-huh.
That's also property. Yeah, generally they're all okay. God nice.
Yeah. So let me just, one of the questions I think very often you get posed, I guess, because very early in your life, you entered into a family business, which actually has grown so big from the time that you took over till today. How do you feel about, seeing the growth of your family business over the years since you took over?
So it's, as you say, started by my father. That's and right. My brother and I are both working in it. So it's just not me. It's, I think, a joint effort. Our dad had given excellent foundation and laid the groundwork for us to build on, which was easy. So my brother Hiran and I basically built on it, and we had lots of opportunities that came our way, and we have excellent teams working for us who are very creative and innovative. And very, very hospitality oriented, very service oriented.
Absolutely.
So together we were able to, build a nice size company. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you must be so proud of the growth and the development of the Jetwing properties, because you're right. It's one of the hotel properties where I have experienced some of the best levels of service. And I'm sure that comes from your culture and your personal values of yourself in Hiran.
Yeah, I mean, thank you for saying that. And that's something I've heard, we have heard a lot of people say, over and over again, that our people are very hospitable, they're very service oriented, they wouldn't mind going that extra mile. So it's very nice to hear. And yes, it has been cultivated. We have a very good training team that goes around and does all the training, and a lot of people believe in our culture, and so they buy into it pretty easily, and that helps us, I think, to carry on what we're doing.
Absolutely. I mean, one of the things that always strikes me about being in Sri Lanka is the hospitality of the people. And more so, I think, in your property, I always feel the very family orientation. It's like almost coming back like home.
Yeah.
Even though we are a guest, we come in as a guest, we leave like a family, So I love that hospitality and the family traditions that I experience in many of your resorts.
Yeah, so just not the resorts only. So we also have this travel company, and a lot of people who use our services tell us the same. So when they are with a chauffeur guide or a guide on a tour, when they go back, I mean, they take so many memories of the country with them, and they feel as if they are like a part of a big family, So it's really nice to hear that.
Absolutely, absolutely. Shiromal, there's a question that I really want to ask you here, because I was reading a report by KPMG, it's called The Power of Women in Family Business. And they found that, women entering a family business face considerable challenges, compared to the male counterparts, primarily due to societal, cultural biasness, prejudice, and of course, the constraining family tradition. So for instance, sometimes they are consciously or unconsciously consigned to a role called the Chief Emotional Officer, where they take care of the emotional needs of the employees and the family rather than the business needs, and they perpetuate the family's values. So it becomes like a hidden CEO role. And also they found that some of the women leaders in a family business also tend to face the challenge to prove their legitimacy, as leaders and their mettle to succeed, So let me ask you this, when you entered especially, and as you move through the business, did you face some of these challenges of needing to prove your legitimacy?
Yeah, so to answer your first question, I think I was fortunate. our dad, there's just me and my brother. So our parents treated both of us equally. We were just two children. It wasn't a daughter and a son. They were two children. So we were given equal opportunities, whether it be in education or extracurricular activities or working, traveling overseas. So we were given similar opportunities. So I never felt that I was different to my brother. We both grew up to be equal. Even the business, unlike some of the Asian families, our parents gave us equal shares of the business. So there was nothing to say the son should get the business or the daughter should get this. So we were both equal in every sense of the word. So I didn't feel the necessity to prove to our dad, who was
so there were no sibling rivalry.
Not really, to be honest, not. But having said that, Nisha, after our dad passed away, then there was only Hiran and me. And so then there was a question of who should be the chairman. And Hiran told me, you're the eldest, so I think you should take it. And this was 14 years ago. But I felt at that time that it was always good for a male to have that role, Our society was such. So I told him,
why did you say that, Shiromal? That's a very interesting thing you just mentioned. Why did you say that? Just to understand you.
Yeah, so just at that time, I thought of, for example, in our society, say you go to a cocktail party or you go for it's always the men will get together. And the women, even if you're working, you have to be with the women. And because if you stay with the men, because the wives are also friends of yours. So you lose out on a lot of the business chat. Men get together and talk business. The wives, unfortunately, get together and, discuss other things. So I felt that I ended up with the wives, although I was in the business. So I thought at that point, it would make sense if my brother became the chairman. It was only later on, a couple of years later, when I was giving a talk and my son was in the audience, and he came up to me and said, you're talking nonsense. You're telling people to be confident in themselves, and you were not confident, at that time. And it was then that I realized, that's very true. I thought the woman was not capable to do that. So sometimes we still have that unconscious bias in us.
Absolutely.
However much we think we are not. So it was only then when he pointed it out, I realized I had that unconscious bias in me.
Yes.
And then this legitimacy question, especially with some of our senior staff, I felt that they were also comfortable with a male than with a female. So I did feel that maybe it was a perceived notion, but it's something I did feel. So you're right, Nisha, it is there. Even unconsciously, it's there.
And I just want to pick up from what you mentioned, that at that time you felt that inadequacy, that men were better off at partnerships, collaborations, and networking. And it's not far away from what is happening at the moment in many of the research that shows that indeed men, the way they collaborate and partner and network is very different from the way that women do. And that is why we need more coaching and training on how to be out there in our networking and collaborations. But I think even at that time, you had that realization that it's better off.
I did, and also the way our society is made up, or it's geared for men to network together. It's geared for men to partner, for men to be together. Having a woman is kind of an alien situation. It's changing now. I must say, it is changing now, and more men are feeling comfortable with women, because earlier men were also not very comfortable. Dealing with women because they were not used to it. So suddenly I had noticed this many years ago. Say there's a group of men and you walk to their midst. They suddenly change the conversation. They don't talk business anymore. They will compliment you on your attire, or they say, oh, you're looking this. I mean, that they would never do to a male colleague.
No. You're
So
absolutely right. It goes to the attention goes to our visuals or aesthetics and not to
yes,
the capability. Or you have a question, something like, how do you manage, family and work and business, which a question that they don't ask a male. How do you
yeah,
manage,
absolutely. Yeah, exactly. You're right.
And also taking that conversation a little further, talking about sometimes our fears and inadequacies. An interesting article in Forbes highlighted that women actually fear success more than failure. And they are constantly battling with fears. You fear the attention that comes with success. You fear the self-promotion. You fear being judged. You fear having children, leaving them behind and taking career breaks. You fear that maybe you are inadequate as women when we juggle so many roles, at home, at work, leaving kids behind, traveling. So Shiromal, share with me. I'm sure as a fellow woman, you have gone through so many experiences in your life. What were your biggest fear as a women leader or entrepreneur? And have you observed this amongst the women that you are working with?
Yeah, so I think, I don't know whether it's a fear, but what I felt was guilt. I had an enormous sense of guilt working, especially when I became a young mom.
Yes,
Leaving my child at home and
absolutely.
working was so gut-wrenching, And then the
Yes.
same way, when I was home with my son, I also felt guilty. I was thinking, oh, I should be at work, there is so much to be done at work. So it was never easy. Both ways, I did feel that guilt very much. So the fear, I don't know whether I felt a fear, but I think I know what you mean. Because very often when women, the spouse, the female, the wife becomes more successful than the husband, most husbands can't take it, then they have other family issues. One of the very common things is most men then end up having a young girlfriend, maybe, that is their way of showing that, I am still. So these are things that have happened. I've seen it happen. And so I have a friend who's very, very successful. She runs a very successful company. She's overseas. But she makes sure that the husband gets all the credit, So it's a joint company which she runs, but in the bank and whenever there is any prominence given, she makes sure the husband gets it. So maybe that's the kind of fear you spoke of. She wants to keep the marriage intact. She wants to keep peace at home. And that's the way she's handling it.
So Shiromal, are you saying that, regardless of the fact that she actually, is contributing to the success of the company, she intentionally becomes invisible or doesn't take the credit so that her husband will be more visible?
Yes, absolutely. So she's always saying in public, oh, he's doing this and he's doing that. And even with the bank, she puts the husband in front. Just to give him a sense of, I think, belonging or pride or adequacy. She doesn't want him to feel inadequate.
Right. And that's exactly what a study in Stanford showed, that because of all these battles and difficulties and the biasness and the prejudice and many other, challenges that women face at work, and then when they go home, there's another set of challenges that they face. Very few female global senior executives have the desire and aspiration to lead large companies and become CEOs. It's not in their wish list. And so there's a word like, they self-select themselves out of the career track and become intentionally invisible. And we see that very often happening. So what advice are you going to give women who are aspiring to break barriers and boundaries, to become more visible? Like you have certainly become more visible, not only in your company, in the trade as well.
Yes, so I think, since women are fortunate, because they can make that choice, if they desire to, they can wait at home and become moms and wives and daughters. carers of older people. So or they can also, whilst doing that, they can also opt to have a career. So I think it should be the wish of each individual. If a woman passionately feels that she needs another life as well, she needs, because sometimes to feel a self-worth, you want to go to office. I love dressing up and coming to office and sitting behind my desk. I do feel a sense of pride, and so I'm sure a lot of women feel that. So, and I don't see why a woman should be deprived of that if she's capable of handling it. So I would tell anybody who wants to have that, don't be afraid, don't be guilt-ridden and think, oh my goodness, the whole world is going to find fault with me, because there's never a right or a wrong. I mean, stay-at-home moms have brought up children who are, not perhaps the best kids. So that's same way, moms who are balancing both also have similar situations. So I think a woman, so go for it. If you are having that desire to do it, because you should have that desire and you should have the strength of your conviction that come what may, amidst all the rhetoric and amidst everything that people will throw at you, you should have the strength to carry on and be focused in what you want to get. And I think having a mentor would really help. Absolutely. Because there will be times when you really think you want to give it up. I want to throw in the towel. It's not worth anymore. Issues at home, issues with your kids at school, and the in-laws are pointing fingers at you. So many things happen. Absolutely. Even at work, things don't go the way you want, and then you think, oh, it's not worth it. So having a mentor or a coach at a time like that would really help.
Right. So who was your mentor coach?
Yeah, so I was lucky, as I said, in my dad. He was around, and he was really, really a great mentor. And I don't think he ever saw a life for me other than working, So he always believed in that. And my mom was a great support as well. She helped me out whenever I needed help with my son, and including my in-laws. So I would say my parents were a great help, and they mentored me. So my mom mentored me with my child rearing, and my dad mentored me with my business activities.
Right. So, now we have also come to realize that there is not a point in your life where you feel that you are above it all and you don't need a mentor. So women, even at our age or later, at a point in our life where we arrive at a crossroad, we need a mentor too. So now that your dad is not around, who is your mentor? It becomes your safety net every now and then, that when you fall, there is somebody out there to say, hey, Shiromal, wake up, get your ideas right, or kick you in the butt. Who is that?
Yeah, so I think as I get older, I'm more and more getting very spiritual, Nisha. And I pray a lot over issues, and I get a lot of inspiration out of that. But on a physical level, so my brother and my brother Hiran, and also my partner Ajit, they are both excellent. I always ask their opinion, and I mean we talk to each other, and we we help each other. Ajit would ask me something, and I would ask him. So I think
male allies.
Yes, I'm fortunate. I'm very fortunate in that.
And one of the things, in some of the interviews that I've listened to of you express that, you are very vocal, you're not afraid to speak your mind. And interesting, because another research also shows that, women are often called a feminist when they ask for their rights, or they seem to be bossy when a woman expresses her opinion. And another study that I was reading that says, female are very afraid to even speak about their achievements, like what you mentioned about your friend. So they tend to play it down, because if you speak about your achievements, people tend to look at you, oh my God, she's bragging, especially fellow women. So therefore, a Guardian newsletter I read mentioned that women tend to view that, there's a certain maleness when they share about your achievements. But I see that you're very vocal. You are very, very comfortable in your skin when you speak about what you have achieved and what you have done. So share this, what makes you assertive when you make a decision? What makes you shove aside some of these stereotypes and biasness?
Yeah, so I think, I don't know, I remember as a child when I was growing up, I went to a convent, a Catholic convent, and the nuns told us girls should be seen and not heard.
Not heard.
Yeah, so I think we were brought up in that environment, don't talk about things, smile, dress pretty, and so I think that may be one of the main things why girls don't want to talk about, as you say. So what I realized is, say you go for a meeting and you might be the only female around the table, and you say something, they listen, but they don't take it in. I think they just switch off when a female. This was way back then. Right. And then you got to say it again, and then you still go unheard. And then after a while, you find a man tells the same thing.
Right.
And then they say, wow, that is an excellent idea, So then I learned, okay, I've got to be a little more forceful next time I say something. So I think just through experience, I had to say, and I kept saying, over and over again. So then that makes you assertive, and they say, oh my goodness, she's this and she's that, and she wouldn't let go. So a lot of things, happen. But I think if you have a point to say something, I think you've got to say it. Sometimes, very often, even to this day, I do go unheard. I know that. And it's so frustrating, when that happens.
Right.
But what's to be done? But you still say it, and you tell them I'd like that minuted, because otherwise people forget about it. And so that I think, I hope it will get corrected over time.
Right.
Because it's getting better and better. But it is a problem that women have, or they say, oh God, now here she goes again.
Yes.
That kind of thought, I think, comes to their minds.
Right. Right. And you're absolutely right, because I have seen that, every time I go on stage as a speaker, two speakers on my left will be men, two speakers on my right will be men. I'm the only female sitting in the center, and they speak over you, as if you are completely invisible. And whatever point that you said, they will say it louder sometimes. And,
absolutely.
And how come we didn't get the airtime that they are, so you tend to raise your voice a little louder and make the point with clarity. And we learn to become more visible, isn't it? But it can be very hurting, isn't it, Shiromal?
Exactly, very hurting and very frustrating as well. And sometimes it's your own colleagues and your own, people that do it for you. So but then what's to be done? I guess we should be thankful for what we have and try and build on it.
And so once you realize that, you feel that that accountability and responsibility to support other women, to give them a voice and put them out there. So how do you go about doing that, Shiromal, to support fellow women to have their voice?
Yeah. So even I thought I'll start it at our own office, because sadly I find women are their worst enemy.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
It's so sad to hear. So even last week, I spoke to a group of my female colleagues, and I told them, don't do this, don't drag each other down, support each other, because they will gossip about the other person. Right. So we fail to look at ourselves as equal colleagues, because if a man and a woman colleague are working together, then they will start this whole rumor, they may be having an affair, it's so sad. And that deprives a woman from, getting extra coaching or extra opportunities to work overtime. So that is one aspect that I'm trying desperately to start at our office. But other than that, we have an amazing Sri Lankan lady. I don't know whether you've heard of her, called Sulochana Sigera. She has started a movement called Women in Management along with IFC. And she does an amazing amount of work in empowering women. So I try and work with her as often as I can. Because she goes to the grassroots plus to officers and all of that.
Oh, really?
So yeah, so whenever there's an opportunity, I try my best to help out.
Amazing. I think these are the very inspiring women. I heard of a woman in Bhutan who is grooming women for being in the parliamentary. And that's so amazing work, not just to be entrepreneurs and leaders, but to become policy makers, so I think it's fantastic because, there was a Harvard Business Review that reported that we're talking about women leadership. Women have done a better job leading during COVID-19 crisis than men. And according to that particular analysis, they used a 360-degree assessment, and they found that women were rated by those who work with them as more effective. And out of 19 competencies, women were rated positively on 13, like that of being able to give emotional support, looking at the well-being, navigating work-life challenges of their colleagues. So there was a term coined by, I think, Harvard Business Review that says a glass cliff, meaning to say that women are more likely than men to be promoted to leadership roles during periods of crisis or downturn, or when the chance of failure is the highest. I thought that was amazing. Do you agree with this? That there are certain leadership qualities that women tend to exhibit and support organizations, especially during difficult periods?
Yeah, I think one of the main qualities is empathy. At times like this, empathetic leaders become very appropriate. So I think women have that in them, they can empathize with a lot of situations. So I think that has helped women to see things in a broader perspective, For example, if somebody has an issue, they think, okay, maybe they have a problem at home as well, and maybe that is why they have this situation at work. So they will probe it a little bit more and find out more, and then they can help bring about a solution to the problem, rather than just temporary, like putting a plaster over something. They could completely cure the wound. So I think, in my mind, empathy has been one of the main things that women have, because their EQ is much higher, I think, than men's. So that I think helps a woman in a situation like this. And also, as you said before, women are not afraid to become failures. They don't mind taking a decision, because even at home, if you notice, if a child does well, it's the father who takes all the credit. And if a child does badly, usually the mom gets kind of saying, oh, you should have done this and you should have done that. And women tend to take it, pretty much, okay.
And then you feel guilty.
So I think to a woman, it doesn't matter. It's just she just wants to get the job done. And very often they even in the Bible, it says what Mother Mary, she pondered it in her heart. So a lot of women, I think, they know this is nonsense what these people are saying, but it doesn't matter, we'll just go with it.
Right. Our industry has gone through so many crises, like 9/11 to SARS to now the COVID to global crisis and so forth. So I'm sure you have been in the thick of all these crises, isn't it, Shiromal? And when you have to make that decision with your fellow male counterparts in your organization, do you find these surfacing?
So I'm kind of blessed to be, as I said, in a situation where, when it's a family company, it's a little bit more empathetic, and they are more family oriented. So we as a company tend to be a little different. We realize that we shouldn't be looking at the bottom line all the time now.
Right.
Because things in Sri Lanka, the cost of living is going up, inflation is getting higher, and there are lots of other economic issues as well. So we became, so it was not a difficult task for us to make decisions together because we all kind of felt the same. So I didn't find that as a problem. No, Nisha, not in my company, our company.
Okay, maybe because it's a family-run business with very strong values entrenched from day one. I think that's the beauty of the Jetwing hotels. Yeah,
I think that made it easier.
Right. And you know, Shiromal, that's a very important issue that is facing our industry. You know, and there is a reason why many women don't enter our industry. And I see that in Sri Lanka. There are very few tour guides who are women, you know, and also in certain positions, we see very few women even in the hotel, you know, where they tend to be in the front line or in F&B, but not in certain positions. So sexual harassment of women at the hotels as well as tour guides is very, very prevalent. And it ranges, you know, when we say sexual harassment, people think that it's a physical harassment, but it's a whole lot of things. Discrimination, even verbal abuse, making very snarky comments, or even asking for extra service. And we used to think that that's part and parcel of customer service, you know. So women are expected to serve customers' demands beyond the norms. And many of these are not even reported. And there are, in fact, from my research and work with hoteliers, there are no formally written policies or guidelines to make these places safe spaces for women to work, you know.
Right.
You know, and when a sexual harassment happened, whether it's verbal or physical, very few women actually report it. So I want to ask you, you know, I'm sure you would have gone through that from the time that you entered the industry, and you probably never even realized that it was called sexual harassment, you know. But now, of course, you realize what that is all about. So speaking from your experience as well as what you observe, you know, and also as a hotel company, have you made concerted efforts to create an environment of zero tolerance towards sexual harassment at the workplace?
Yes, we have, Nisha. I mean, we have very clearly defined policies, and we don't take on any harassment. As you say, it need not be physical. It can be just remarks made. So first what we did was we educated everybody, and of course it's an ongoing process. And we haven't done much in the last 2 years because people were working from home and things. But otherwise we try to keep repeating this message, you know. But as you say, just comments made when somebody is walking across, you know, it's not appropriate. But a lot of women try to take it, you know, okay, they will just ignore it. So we are making an effort, but I'm not saying we are 100% successful. But any other form of harassment, you know, of course, we are very, very strict. And we have taken disciplinary action against some perpetrators, and we are we are very strict about it. But you know, there are, when you say tour guides, now for instance, we have quarters for tour guides or chauffeur guides. So they're all male, and now we've just hired a female chauffeur guide. But then the question arises, where does she sleep at night, you know?
Exactly.
So which means we have to find her a separate room, and then the cost goes up. So who pays for that cost? Does a client pay? Do we pay? So there are lots of issues that are against women as well, unfortunately. So there should be numbers, you know, just one or two doing okay. There should always be a start. But it's tough. It's really tough to break into some of these areas, as you say.
So why is it that a hotel like yourself cannot be the first? In fact, why I asked this question is because in Malaysia, I think it was only last year that they came up with a rule that hotels must provide a room separately for a female guide and a male guide. They are not supposed to co-share it. So the policy came out, and then the hoteliers started to follow. So perhaps, is it possible that Jetwings become the first group of hotels that provide for such facilities for female guides and male guides, separate
yes, so we definitely don't expect a male and a female to co-share. I mean, not only Jetwing, I don't think any other hotel company does it. So we definitely have separate areas. So, but what I meant is, so guides are generally given a separate room. But if it's a chauffeur guide, all the chauffeurs use a separate one common area, it's like dormitory kind of accommodation.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, the dormitories.
So yeah, so whereas when it's a female, and since there aren't many female chauffeur guides, there isn't such facilities. So yeah, so now we are looking at doing something, or maybe renting like some facility from a nearby home, maybe, and providing that. Yeah. Absolutely. So that's what we're looking at, Nisha. Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Because the statistics are showing that there are more solo female travelers who need the company of female guides. We are also seeing more and more women wanting to support women-led travel companies, and they want to employ a women tour guide, because the perspectives given by a female gaze when it comes to culture in terms of gourmet, or even the literature of a destination, the heritage and so forth, is very different from a male gaze. So as we see the pattern, or the trend increasing, then there may be a bigger need for more female guides to come up.
Absolutely. No, I cannot agree more. But in a country like Sri Lanka, where the social norms are so warped, it takes a brave woman to leave home for 7 days, 10 days, and, go on tours. So I'm happy, as you said, there are a couple who have come up, and I'm hoping that would just be the start for more to follow.
Right. And we hope so too. I think there are many companies like Intrepid, for example, Unteam, they're all trying to go out there and train more tour guides. But we need a recognition, a policy that looks at sexual harassment and say, we empower you to step up if there is a territory, where a man anyone crosses the boundary, that we empower the women, to say no to oppression, or even in the hotels to step up to say that you are empowered. Say no in the room if you're a housekeeper, and I think this will be amazing to pitch a hotel to be one of those leading hotels that support women, so that you get more women joining your hotel chain. Right.
So to be honest, we don't have such a problem from our guests, and nor have we had from our employees. I mean, we get the occasional complaint, but not on a regular basis, Nisha. Maybe Sri Lanka guests who come to Sri Lanka are not that. I don't know. To be honest, I haven't had such complaints coming. Maybe they're not talking about it. I don't know. But have we ever
It's interesting you just mentioned that, Shiromal, that that's actually what many of the reports say, that many of the management staff say we didn't hear about it. The owners say we didn't hear about it. And the reason is because many of the women don't know how to report it. They're afraid to report it. They don't know what exactly is sexual harassment to even report it. There is a lack of clarity of the, the systems and processes in place for them to do that. We've spoken to HR managers who say that we don't know how to deal with this because we can't even draw a line to say, hey, this is sexual harassment, this is not sexual harassment, and the processes are not in place. So interestingly, it's evident, it is there, but many of these are not actually reported.
Right. Yeah, that's probably true. Yes.
So I hope in 2022 we see more and more hoteliers, tourism board, tour guide association begin to think very, very clearly about these issues and mobilize the agency for that. And I'm sure, as Jetwing has always been a supporter of sustainability, this is part of SDG goals.
Sure, absolutely. Yes.
Right. And Shiromal, this is, it's a podcast called Women We Watch. And we have been watching you as one of the leaders in our industry to share your lived experience and narratives, which you have so generously done. So I'm going to ask you this question. Who is the one woman that Shiromal watches?
There isn't one person like that, but if you were to ask me who would I admire, I really admire Jacinda Ardern and Angela Merkel. I mean, I think they are two women who were true to their beliefs, and they just couldn't care about what others said. They made very informed decisions. They listened to the advisors of professionals. I think from what I heard, from what I read, they gathered the information and they made very educated, well-informed decisions.
Right.
And once that decision was made, they stood by it, right or wrong. So I really admire that. And of course, Angela Merkel is not leading the country anymore. But it was so good to see there was no corruption. She led it so well. She had a husband, but the husband was not brought up and not given projects that were lucrative. Which like what happens with other politicians. Then even Jacinda, when she was a young mother, the fact that she took the baby to the UN assembly and fed the baby as well. It's a fabulous example to a mother to see that you can still do both. You don't have to say, oh, I can't become the prime minister because I've just had a baby, or say I can't have a baby because I'm going to be the prime minister of New Zealand. So you can actually do it all, provided you have a support network. So to me, they are excellent examples of women who have, so the two of them.
And I think the amazing thing about Jacinda Ardern is that she's one of those very empathetic leader and so authentic whenever she appears in front of the camera.
Absolutely. And then she tells it all. She communicates so well. Absolutely. She informs the public the real situation. She doesn't try to camouflage, or sweet talk. And then it's fine. That's how all leaders should be.
All right. And I think many of these traits you just mentioned are reflective of Shiromal Cooray too.
I hope so.
Maybe that's why you admire this. And those are a reflection of you in many ways, that I think you inspire so many people in Sri Lanka as well as the industry. And
thank you. That's very kind of you, Nisha.
Thank you. We have such an amazing conversation today that I've been looking forward to for such a long time. But what is the one takeaway that you want our listeners to get from this episode and your experience?
Yeah, so for a woman, I would say, if you are passionate about having, I would say, dual careers, being a mom, a wife, plus having a career outside your home, just go for it. Don't get disheartened, don't get bullied, or don't get guilt-ridden. Just focus, carry on, and you can do it. You may have to compromise. You can't have perfect situations. There'll be times when one thing takes priority than the other, but that's fine. Eventually you learn how to balance it both, and just go for it. Don't hesitate.
Gems, Shiromal, gems. It's a constant reminder. I mean, we, although sometimes people say, oh, this is no brainer, but I think what you are saying comes from the depth of your experience. And it's not just words, but I think you have lived these words that you have just uttered.
Yeah, because it's sad, the girls who come up all brilliant in school, they get very high marks and they come into careers, they become management trainees, they do so well. They get married, they have a kid, and then they go. It's such a pity, but then I guess that's their choice.
Exactly. And even though, many are endowed with resources within themselves, they play it small because of the constraints that imposed on them.
Correct. And it's ironical that in Sri Lanka also, when it shouldn't be the case, I'm not advocating that, but when a husband dies or when a woman divorces, they blossom out, you know. I mean, we have had a president and a prime minister who both became that when their husbands died.
Right.
Were the husbands were to live, they would have been very nice, smiling, doting housewives. You know, it's a bit, so it shows that these people have the ability to do it, just that they are not given the opportunity.
Right, and they seized the liberation when the right time came up.
Absolutely, yes.
Right.
Yes.
Right. And Shiromal, if any of our listeners want to connect with you and if they are interested in finding out more about what you do, whether it's with women or with sustainability or running as a entrepreneur in a family business, how can they reach out to you?
So maybe they can send me an email, Shiromal at jetwing.lk.
Okay. And you're on LinkedIn too, so we probably put that on the show notes as well.
Yes. Absolutely, yes.
And Shiromal, time just flew just like that.
I know.
And you know, what an amazing conversation I had with you. And thank you so much for, as always, you know, being so outright honest with your opinions and your thoughts, and for sharing so generously your lived experience with an amazing company that I think is a fantastic exemplary hotel chain for standards, excellence, sustainability, and of course, values.
Thanks. Thank you, Nisha. Thank you for the opportunity, and thank you very much.
Thank you. And just listening to you, I love your accent. It always reminds me of the beauty of Sri Lanka, the hospitality of the people.
Please do come as soon as your restrictions are lifted.
First 2 countries on my list.
Because Sri Lanka is open. We have no restrictions. As long as you're vaccinated, you're welcome here with a negative PCR.
Certainly. And since it's this January, I wish you and Jetwings a fabulous 2020, and may we all come out of this really soon. Your company has been a source of employment generation to inspiration to so many people in our industry. So I wish you all the best.
Yeah, thank you, Nisha, and the same to you as well. May you have a good, safe, and a healthy year.
Yes. Thank you, Shiromal.
Take care. Thank you. Thanks, Nisha. Take care. Bye-bye.
Now, that was an intellectual feast for me. I felt an immense pleasure listening to Shiromal's decades of experience and enjoyed her unassuming, down-to-earth, and frank nature. Every word of wisdom that was articulated by her comes from the depth of her heart and her lived experience. I hope you enjoyed my deep dive conversation with Shiromal and her perspectives on challenges women leaders face in her successful journey steering a family-owned hospitality brand towards becoming a legendary name in the industry. That's all for this episode, dear listeners. Please help support the podcast and share it with others. Post about it on social media or leave a rating and review for us. Catch all our episodes on major podcast platforms and follow us on LinkedIn and Instagram. Thanks again, and looking forward to the next episode with another incredible woman that we watch in tourism. Goodbye for now. Take care.